What a scary thought.
Why?
Hello and welcome to Hash Rugby Chat, episode 50. 50.
The extra man, beautifully set up, try scored.
Yes, we have. We've scored a try. There you go. Hi, I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul, your best place rugby opinion and predictions and all of that kind of stuff. And we have got a whole host of stuff to talk about tonight because the Rugby Championship, the Mitre 10 Cup, the Currie Cup all kick off this weekend. And it's not that far away till we get to the National Rugby Championship, the Pro 14, the Top 14 and the Gallagher Premiership as well. Now that Aviva has ducked out of the sponsorship there. So there is so much going on. And we will not be covering it all because that's way too much. But we are going to cover some interesting stuff. So episode 50, let's do something special. Let's talk about rugby goats. And we don't mean the sort that have horns and go, but anyway, so greatest of all times, all that kind of stuff is what we're going to talk about. And joining me to talk about that is the one, the only, Ashwin. How you doing, sir?
I'm sick.
You're sick.
The whole family's sick.
Yes,
I might get heated. I might get heated during our conversation because my temperature will fluctuate.
I thought you meant you're sick as in getting down, man.
I'm sick.
Talking like with people in the hood. So, what's your celebration drink for the 50th edition?
It was an empty glass of water because I'm sick.
Oh dearie me. Where's me?
But it was sparkling because I put it in the old soda stream.
Oh, you classy man. So I'm on the old Mike's lock and load this evening. Apparently petered wee heavy. So that's going to be interesting. So I'm going to pop that.
It's opening up on halfway as the All Blacks again counter-attack brilliantly. They must score. That's a great
Stupid
try.
foil thing on top. So anyway, while I pour my beer, we need video, it says. Of course you've got video.
There's dog being...
You're typing that, yes. Here I am trying to read live comments from the people watching, and you're typing that. Anyway, so, while I pour my beer, why don't you kick us off with who is the GOAT?
Yeah, look, I see it quite coming through the old Facebook feeds a lot, actually. That's where I got the idea for this sort of topic from.
This section, I think, is the technical term.
Yeah, this section, of our show. Around and Brian O'Driscoll being referred to as the GOAT. And then it sort of got me thinking, as obviously over here in our world, we always think of Richie as a GOAT. And then I'm sort of thinking, who else is out there that can be considered as GOAT? And are they worthy of the title GOAT? Because I do have some, like when you see them coming through, and obviously down here we're in our little All Blacks bubble, and we don't necessarily know how things are going around the world. And so I do have question marks about whether Brian is a GOAT.
Okay, so folks, we had a little chat about this on Messenger, on Twitter Messenger earlier yesterday, and we were listing off people who we thought, hey, who needs to be in discussion as far as GOATs go, and who as the GOAT goes. They kept on all these names coming out, and then it's kind of like, okay, boys, are you going to mention anyone that's not from New Zealand? And you think you might live in a little bubble down here, do you?
There's a little one. John Travolta's in here with us. You might have to be a bit older to understand that one.
Yeah.
Go get a movie out called The Boy in the Plastic Bubble.
I'm awkward. Dear me, you're coughing away. So, come on, so what do you think we need to sort of say? How do you categorize? How do you decide who the GOAT is?
Oh, look, I think there's got to be an element of, fearlessness. There's got to be achievements in there, doesn't there? And significant achievements as well. And then longevity as well. So I think for me, there's like three that I can come off the top of my head. There's that fearlessness factor, the carrying on under some sort of physical adversity, achievements. What's on your ledger of and what's in the trophy cabinet, And then, as I say, longevity and the fact that obviously you can't be really. There's going to be great players that won't get GOAT status just because of, sadly, the injuries meant cut short their playing career or whatever. I mean, the obvious one that people are going to think of is like sort of Jonah, but there's Michael Jones as well that you could probably throw into that sort of category as well. But yeah, so that'd be the sort of things that I suppose you're looking at.
Okay, so you want to throw in there. Okay, look, interesting. Actually, one thing you've not mentioned there is actually ability to play, which is interesting.
Well, I suppose you're not really going to have that longevity in the game if you can't play. Otherwise, I could talk about myself as a GOAT.
a nanny goat, maybe. But looking at, I mean, there are certain players who kind of get in because, certain Irish players, for example, who are like, he racked up 60, 70 caps. Yes, but he was pretty much the only prop available for 20. Everyone else was awful. Longevity isn't everything. That's for certain. And now, Bod, only one letter from God. It's for Ireland. Is part of that golden generation. Obviously, you've got Rog, Ronan O'Gara in there. You've got Bod. You've got Paul O'Connell. All those three-letter guys. And yeah, it was. He obviously Lions captain. Obviously brought short by some dodgy All Blacks play. So perhaps that injury bit there. Plenty of
shouldn't put his head there.
Plenty of plenty of awards at club level, but didn't win that much at international level, which let's be honest, Ireland never have done.
And that's where I sort of look at it in terms of, and that's why I sort of, like I said, got into this. Is that you see a lot of comment from the Northern Hemisphere as being a god, goat, I should say. And I was sort of thinking, well, he really hasn't had the achievements. He hasn't notched them up. And then obviously Hugh, as I said, because I live in my All Blacks bubble, I couldn't think of any other names. And another one of your guests came from Aussie, comes up with the obvious one, actually, and a really obvious one too. And is John Eales, nobody, because nobody's perfect. John Eales is, again, the results are there. Definitely a one-time World Cup winning captain, and I think he might have been involved in 2 Australian teams as World Cup. Was in successful teams winning the Bledisloe against the All Blacks. A second rower kicking goals, and not only that, one goal kick, I think it was 2003 at Westpac Stadium, to win the Bledisloe. He kicks a goal. He's played 80 minutes of rugby and he goes and kicks a goal to win the game. So, and so you look at that, and that's why I sort of think, obviously Richie we will talk about as being a GOAT, and then John Eales, a GOAT, because he's got the runs on the board. He's got a long career, and he was a captain that was fantastic captain as well.
Yep, and inducted into the Wallaby Hall of Fame in 2011. Apparently, I've just suddenly brought up his piece. I'm trying to think if 86 caps for Australia, so from 1991 to around 2001, and as you say, 173 points for a forward. That's when
he got tired legs from pushing a scrum around.
And one of the things actually, so we mentioned obviously Bod is one that's kind of brought this up. We've got nobody's in there. You mentioned Richie already in the live chat. Colin Meads. Now Colin Meads didn't win many Rugby World Cups, did he? Now let's be honest. So
it's a hard one. I mean, like with someone like Colin Meads, I think if he had been in the era of World Cups, then with the commitment that he had to the All Blacks and that, he possibly could have got there. But it's hard. We haven't seen Colin Meads play. I mean, I think I might have been young and I might have actually seen one game from Colin Meads, etc. It's hard for me to say whether you rate Colin Meads. I mean, obviously he's got the legacy, the legend of the man is definitely there, and that's what we go off. And if you went off the legend purely, you'd say definitely a GOAT. But we're making that assumption of what other people are saying as opposed to with the players that we've talked about, what we've seen ourselves.
True, and if you went through the legend, he's as big as his statue.
And the reality was he was actually quite a short lock. As locks go. I mean, I'm not going to say that to his face, and I can't now anyway, but you're a short lock.
And Andre is saying, are we going for GOATs per position or overall? Oh, well, we're just general rambling chat, Andre. So actually, Andre as a South African, come on, throw some South African names in there. Jost van Westhuizen, I think, has been thrown around as GOAT. A guy, I mean, a bit like Jonah, in fact, where Jonah kind of redefined what wingers do. Jost did a similar sort of thing for the for scrum halves as well. Yeah,
absolutely, and basically sort of defined a role or redefined a role, you should say. And I suppose you look at those sort of players. And you reference Jonah there in terms of he defined a position as well in terms of the way he changed that position. Unfortunately for Jonah, you can't really say that you can't put him in a GOAT category because just didn't have that longevity in the game. And I think to be a GOAT, you have to have longevity in the game and go on. And the other thing is that he didn't win a World Cup.
He didn't, but as you say, but he was someone who got known outside the sport, which is rare for obviously for a rugby player.
He probably had the biggest, if not, he did have the biggest profile in rugby, and even you can take the game of rugby away, and he still had a profile out as just a sportsman in general.
Oh, he had a bigger profile. I mean, even when he was injured, he was bigger than anyone in the sport.
Absolutely. I just want to go back to Jack mentioning someone like Dan Carter, and it's just like, whether you mention him as I don't consider, and that's what him as a GOAT, and I put him in the class of, and that's where I put him in the class of like the likes of a Brian O'Driscoll as well, in the fact that great players and great achievements, but for me, the thing that stops Dan Carter being a GOAT, one thing in particular, was he actually was injury prone.
Some would say fragile, glass-like.
Fragile, glass. Look, what you would class a great player, just not a GOAT. I mean, you gotta have something special to be a GOAT. You can't just, otherwise every man and his dog ends up, you start chucking every name in there. I mean, one I thought of, is he a GOAT? Isn't he a GOAT? Victor Matfield.
No, very, very good player. Don't get me wrong.
Yep.
The greatest lock of all time? No. So so hence he can't be the greatest player of all time. I guess so. One of the things we're coming up with here, and Andre has come up with another one, is Ostu Rambit, and I've gone butchered the pronunciation. I'm so sorry. We're talking about forwards here, aren't we? Really, we're not really talking about backs. And we're not talking about front rowers either. On the whole, we're talking about basically back five players.
That's the thing, is that, I mean, when we look at the players that we're sort of talking about, is the fact is that there's a lot of blood and guts going into that. It's as well as skill and the effort factor as well, and what they have to put out there on the field. So Alex has just mentioned Martin Johnson. Maybe skill-wise not great, but as a leader, no, I should rephrase that, because there were certain parts in the core skills of a lock he did very well. Maybe he didn't run around with the ball in one hand, that sort of thing. But, as a leader, what a fantastic leader he was. Does it make him a GOAT? And I suppose, what's coming out of this conversation, when you look at, we've talked about two players, Richie and Jonny Eels, where there's no question, right? He just basically like, yeah, they're GOATs.
Well, no, because I'm trying to get down to the GOAT.
You're trying to get down the GOAT.
The GOAT. So who is the GOAT? So that's why I'm happy to say Victor Matfield, no. Talking about players who define positions, Jonny Wilkinson defined a way of playing fly half that no one had done before. He was the first big tackling fly half, and he was the first one to actually say, right, fly halves actually have to defend. Kicking wise, there were good kickers before him. He took it perhaps to another level, but the defensive piece, again, another player who redefined the role. People will argue he is not the best fly half of all time because of other parts of his game, but if we're talking about players who redefine roles, he redefined that role as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the thing. The other thing we've got to look at is that if we're looking at GOATs outside of the All Blacks, one of the ways that they're going to be measured as to whether they are in a GOAT category is their success against the All Blacks. Because at the end of the day, you have to have beaten the All Blacks consistently. And
to be fair, Jonny and Martin Johnson are in that category.
Yes. Absolutely. So yes, they're definitely they're in. That's it. They're in the kind of in that category. But yeah, I wouldn't say greatest of all time. You had another name you were banding around in the chat. Oh, my mind's gone blank, mate.
Wasn't it Brian or Anyway,
hang on. You keep talking to our audience, and I'll have a quick look.
So we mentioned. Jonny brought up. Someone brought up Brian Habana. Again, very good player. Would I say he was a GOAT of the greatest of all time wingers? Nah, I don't think so. But yeah, extremely good player. Dog in the bathtub is taking the mick a bit, but mentioning Stephen Donald. Now, maybe if we are talking about the greatest of all time Colts player, maybe.
Stephen Donald can never be a GOAT because he lost us the DHL Cup in Hong Kong. All important DHL Cup. We'll never get that cup again. We'll never get the chance to get that cup again. Australia's too scared to play us for the DHL Cup, so he can never be a GOAT. Now, so just to be clear, the Brian I was referring to was Brian O'Driscoll.
Ah. I thought it was about Brian Williams. I don't know why.
Look, right. Well, he has been inducted into the Rugby Hall of Fame recently. So, look, if you were going to push me, because I'm an All Blacks fan, I'm going to say, well, at the end of the day, it has to be Richie.
Really? Oh, because you've seen him.
Oh, look, not just that. To me, it's just the number of times that he's rolled out with the injuries. I mean, like, the whole 2011 World Cup is played with a broken foot.
Yeah, I'm in some ways I'm not so so I'm not so sold on this idea of eulogising players who play through injury because the damage they could do to themselves. I mean, if we're gonna use injury as the barometer for GOAT, Buck Shelford.
Buck Shelford wins.
Hands down. And then I heard a story recently on the radio today, I think it was yesterday, of another person who had finished a game or finished a sport and had to go and then realised, oh, I need to go get my scrotum stitched. Like,
and then come back out and win the game.
You've come off the pitch, gone and got yourself showered and stuff and gone, oops. And what? Jeez. There is no way I could ever be a professional sportsman in any sport with my lack of tolerance of pain. Let's be blunt here. Forget about all this kind of stuff. People wanted to throw around a couple of names, a couple of fly halves. Carlos Spencer, not even first choice for the All Blacks during his time. So,
yeah, I was going to say. I mean, like that'll actually be the reason. And conversely, you can sort of like when you have the discussion around Andrew Mertens, you're not going to be able to say he was the GOAT either because of the fact of even though he played more than Carlos, they were competing for that position and at times one-upping each other to earn that position.
Now,
basically, if you're going to be a GOAT, you're going to own that position for the entire time of your playing career.
Yeah, I'm going to go Pine Tree. I know you'll go Meads, I'll go Pine Tree. Sorry, I know you've gone Richard McCaw. I'm going Meads. No. But I mean, admittedly, I've never seen him play. But still, just you can just tell by how revered he is throughout the game, and for so long. So that's why. I'm going to go with him.
That's a good point, and the fact that obviously after his playing days, people outside of New Zealand might not get this term, but he was almost like like a kamatua of New Zealand rugby, in the respect, and that went outside of obviously New Zealand as well, globally. The respect for Colin Meads, or Sir Colin Meads, apologise, was global and universal.
Absolutely. And he was also from another tweet, and also actually was Facebook post I put up there. So I stopped on the way home from Auckland this weekend in the BP garage to get myself a coffee, and they had a poster on the wall there with sporting legends from Tikiti, which is where I've got to pronounce it wrong, haven't I? Anyway, Tikawini. There we go. Where Mr. Meads is from, or Sir Meads is from. And it was fantastic. They had obviously a picture of Colin Meads, and then they had a picture of a guy who, clearly a legend in the area of sheep shearing. And this was their two sporting legends, were rugby and a sheep shearer, which I thought was peak New Zealand.
Tikawini is peak New Zealand.
So Tikawini is the sheep shearing capital of the world, they claim.
Yes.
So yes, so funny to loved that. I guess if we're going to talk about the showman, the greatest showman of all time, then Carlos Spencer's got to be in that conversation.
Oh, look, the trickery that he displayed while he was on the field, and when we talk, we've talked about in this conversation around goats, is like with the Jonny Wilkinsons, your Jonah Lomus, they redefined, or they brought something new to the position that we hadn't seen on the field before, and that's what Carlos Spencer, when in his time, whether he was playing for Auckland Blues or the All Blacks, was that he was bringing something to the field. There's we haven't seen that on the field before, Obviously, the classics, 2003, between the legs to Joe Rokocoko against the Springboks, for him to score in the corner. He actually had a law.
To me, the classic is MPC, Auckland versus Canterbury.
It's actually a Super Rugby match.
It's Blues. It's Blues Crusaders.
Blues Crusaders.
The Blues. I think they pretty much broke from their own 22, didn't they? And scored a try. He runs under the posts, turns right, walks with 3 or 4 other players to the corner flag, puts the ball down in the corner, walks back, and then kicks the conversion as well. In an absolute middle finger to the Crusaders. The other player I was going to talk about when we're talking about showman was David Campisi. Was another guy who I think is in that conversation. And it's not just about being a showman, isn't it? Is it? It's also about being.
You got to back it up.
Yeah,
no point about being a show pony if you don't back it up.
Yeah, but it's not just about being, but it's about being. You are the cockiest guy on the pitch.
Look, and when you talk about David Campisi, you go back to the 91 semi-final against the All Blacks, and he sets up the try for Tim Horan, which basically secured the game for them, if I remember off the top of my head. It's going back a while now. But the sleight of hand that he did, and then passes off to Tim Horan to score was, I've seen that try a few times, sadly. And, very much that sort of summed up David Campisi. Introduced the world to the goose step. I mean, I know there was some bad guys in Germany that did it as well, but I mean in rugby terms.
Alex says, on the flip side, Spencer could be costly, such as throwing an intercept to Mortlock in 2003. And if we're talking about some costly, David Campisi throwing a pass to nobody in his own try area.
That's a showman.
They have the backbone to try it.
At the end of the day, if Robbie Deans and John Mitchell hadn't have put Leon McDonald in the centres, that probably wouldn't have happened, by the way. But we won't get into that.
And we have, yes, and Neymar, thanks for coming and start talking, typed in French, so I can't read what your comment is, but obviously from you've also got to talk about, I've gone blank as the French fullback.
Serge Blanco.
Serge Blanco has got to be in that kind of conversation, as well with Carlos and Campo. Another player who would just try anything from anywhere and pull it off.
Yeah, his try against Australia in '87 in the World Cup, sensational. Back at the classic Concord Oval.
Dog in Bathtub saying John Olamu is the obvious GOAT. Again, longevity wasn't there. Yes, he redefined it, his role. Yes, he was bigger than rugby. But yeah, greatest of all time player, having only played like so few years, it's hard to put him in that category. So, but you mentioned his achievements in sevens. If we're talking sevens, it's Serevi. I mean, there is no one else, is there?
I don't think so. I was actually thinking, I'll be honest, I'll chuck a Eric Rush up there as well. He'd be part of the discussion. But, Serevi was, I suppose the thing is that we've just talked about showman, and in sevens, a showman stands out so much more. And Serevi was the showman, and he was such that driving force behind that team, obviously being the GOAT, but also being the playmaker. Serevi, but I think you'd throw in an Eric Rush in there. With the thing about Eric Rush that was different from Serevi was the fact that he was more, I want to say calculating, but it's not the right word, but he read the game better, whereas Serevi was more just that the magic moment, create something type scenario, where Eric was using, with the team, developing the spaces to open up.
Less kind of fun, but players like, DJ Forbes, just the number of appearances and tournaments he turned up, he played in. Ben Goldings, the England player, for the number of points he scored, being the highest point scorer of all time. In sevens.
And because it's sevens, it's not even kicking goals.
Well, it does include goals as well.
No, it's just, I was trying to, that English 3-point thing, that's all.
Oh yeah, okay. So non-main, so GOAT not from a traditional Tier 1 nation. Hugo Porter.
Yeah, look, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, like, again, so much of Hugo Porter is around what we hear and what we hear people talking about it, as opposed to necessarily seeing it. Because we go back to the time when Hugo Porter was playing, and like for me, it would be a case of, I see Hugo Porter playing when he's playing the All Blacks. You'd probably see Hugo Porter playing back when you were home, or back in England, and playing the English, because home's here now in New Plymouth. But so you don't. I mean, these days we see a lot more rugby that's not necessarily your own home, the team that you support. So it's a hard one to gauge, because you're basically going off.
And I've just gone blank as the guy's name, but the guy he's just retired, was known as the Magician in Argentina.
No, don't know.
Oh,
we'll have
beep again. You played
one of our viewers in the chat room might be able to pop up the name.
Moved to 12 later on, and Sanchez just looked so much better with him outside him. But I've gone blank as the name, unfortunately. But yeah, another player who probably I put in there from Argentina. So that has been a fun discussion. It has also taken up half the show in question one. So
and but it's also given us another topic, because I've forgotten who it was in the chat room mentioned, hey, you guys should talk about who was the greatest coach. and we'll leave that for another show. Great, thanks. Because we need help with ideas, don't we?
We do. So we have a choice here. Okay, we either at this point commit to a 2-hour show, or we kind of scrap half of what we're going to talk about.
I'll be honest with you today. I think we should stick to 1 hour show.
We're going to stick to 1 hour show. Oh,
I don't know how much. I don't think I'll last the 2 hour show today.
Okay, then. So, do you want to go topical, or you wanted to do the Fafita thing? Just quickly.
Oh, the Fafita thing we can knock that one off pretty quickly, isn't it? Because I don't think we're going to get. I think we're all as confused as via Fafita on why he's missed out on the All Blacks, because he was told, because you're playing lock, we can't pick you as a blindside because we don't see you playing that well because you're playing lock, and then they've gone and picked lock to play blindside. So
Himapo now, Himapo, who, I mean, one of the things we talk about normally when we're in All Black selection is basically having earned the shirt.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Alex. Felipe Contempone was the guy I was talking about. Anyway, it's kind of having sort of money in the bank, and let's just Fafita's done it last season. He's got some money in the bank. And so you're like, well, yeah, we know he can do it. So why? So it's funny how he hasn't got that, whereas other players who sort of seem to, and they've gone for Himapo, who really hasn't done. Right?
We talk about these days. There's no Bolt as well. This year we've seen Jackson Himapo and Shannon Frizzell come into the squad. On top of that, just what I'll sort of wrap up what you've just basically said. Is the fact is that the number of times an All Black has been absolutely, can I say piss poor? I've just said it.
Sorry, kids,
in Super Rugby.
Do not copy Uncle Ashwin.
yeah, I'll get soap for you. Yeah, look, the number of times that in the Super Rugby that they haven't played in the All Blacks go, oh yeah, but they give the incumbent a go because they now get into the All Blacks environment and they step it up and they're back to on form. So how does that change for Mr. Fafita?
Yeah, he seems to have, something clearly hasn't quite clicked with the incumbent. That was what I was looking for. He was part of the incumbent. Okay, fine. Perhaps not first choice sixth, but he was definitely first choice backup. And I agree with the All Blacks in the fact that yes, he should be playing six, not 4 or 5. Definitely not got the so to me, he really should be in there. But sorry, I don't I don't get what's going on there. I think it's all a bit of a.
It's all a bit.
It seems a bit strange how he's been treated that way. It's inconsistent, and that's what we don't like to. And that's what sort of starts to upset playing groups is when there's favouritism.
I think they were in the whole back row scenario. Obviously, they've got their you're going to have Kieran Reid, you're going to have Sam Cane. Who's our incumbent number 6? Have we got one?
Liam Squire.
Oh, Liam Squire. Sorry, yep, Liam Squire. So the other guys are playing for positions in the squad or on the bench, but I'm not seeing any consistency. I don't really. I mean, like as I said, this year they brought in Shannon Frizzell, Jackson Himapo. Fafita seems to have gone by the wayside. We don't know what's happening with Akira Ioane. Artie Sevier sort of almost had a bit of time on the sideline, for want of a better term, when Matt Todd came in and it looks like, oh, hang on, they're going now to prefer Matt Todd. Now he's back on the outer, and it all seems a bit all over the place, actually.
Matt Todd's on the outer because he's gone, guys, I've given you all my best years. I'm off to Japan to earn some money, please. So
yeah, but that's it, right? He's only gone to Japan because he's not exactly what you sort of said before. Is that he's not getting he doesn't understand what's happening. He sort of obviously feels he's putting the effort in. He's doing the right things, but not getting the time in the black jersey. So, sayonara.
No,
quite convenient. He's going to Japan.
It's only for the off season. He'll be back for.
Exactly.
Him and Dag have done the same thing. They've put the years in for the Crusaders, and it's like, look, guys, I need a sabbatical, and effectively they're
Need some
taking a
coin.
sabbatical from Minor 10 Cup to go and earn some coin.
Yeah.
And that's been allowed. Backup 8 is Whitelock, but I don't see that. I don't understand why he's the backup 8. In all honesty, it doesn't excite me in that kind of role. And you're thinking, well, they should be grooming Akiri and getting his attitude right to be there. But clearly, there's something about Akiri, there's something about Fafita that they don't quite like. A bit like what I thought and what I still think to a certain extent. There's something about Richard Moanga that they're not that they're concerned about. I don't know what it is. Obviously, we don't get to see them in training and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, they're clearly not. They're not fans of him either. So yeah, there are some, and there are definitely some inconsistencies there. So we're going to sort of jumping around a bit here, but basically, is the Rugby Championship just a race for second now?
We won't really know until it starts, tell you the truth, because, or maybe that's just hope, because we do want to see some competition. Not too much competition, because I like sitting there and relaxing and enjoying an All Blacks win. Look, the Springboks, they've got some, this feels like there's momentum with the Springboks of some sort. I don't know what it is, but there seems to be, there's some players coming back from Europe. They've got some good players, Vermeulen, etc. I know Malcolm Mark. I know lots of Springboks fans are expecting Malcolm Marks to play 1 to 15, but he is still there. The issue that the Springboks, I think, are going to have is that if Andre Pollard gets injured, they're not going to win a game because Elton Yankees is their backups first 5, and he's not an international first 5. So look. Maybe when they're playing the All Blacks in New Zealand, they might it might be down a lay down Nazir. You might be able to put the old mortgage on the TAB. But the All Blacks playing South Africa, and South Africa could be a good competition, could be a good game. This weekend we'll get an indication of whether the Australians where they can back up their effort that they put in against Ireland. We remember Ireland's the number 2 team in the world, and they ran them very close, and you could argue that they got bloody unlucky at the last seconds of that third test match not to have the chance to win the game.
Yeah, so to me, I'm a bit concerned about South Africa at the moment. Now, I've not a topic that I've avoided on the whole on my channels, my blog for basically the whole time I've had it has been the quotas. But at the moment, it's got to stay. It's got to. Well, not got to a stage, but it's the way that Rasmussen was picking his squads, or picking his teams during the June window. To me, just made it blatant that he has got a very that he's clearly balancing his squad according to quotas, and that when you saw certain players removed, so there were players who were picked for Washington DC, and then you saw that actually when we came to the 3 games in South Africa, that Pollard was replaced by Elton Yankees, and therefore another sort of non-coloured player could be brought in and you could, in that back line, it was just looked to me a bit too obvious that he switched out like I think it was like 4 or 5 players, and switched them back in. The other players were switched in for different positions, but had the same colour ratio. And to me, that I don't think is. I think they're going to have some problems if he's trying to do that to balance in his selections personally. So I'm really concerned about. I know everyone's very positive about the Springboks at the moment. I'm a bit worried for them as to how that's going to work out.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because at the end of the day, any sort of quota type scenarios really, for some reason, mostly affects them in the forwards. The back line, they've got obviously flyers in the back 3 there that they can resolve their quota issues within the backline. It's when they have to, if the quota issue starts impacting their forward pack, because that's where they can sort of maybe don't have the quality to ensure that the quotas are met. I'm trying to be PC and not say the wrong thing. I'm dancing around a minefield.
Yeah, no, and that's kind of you
What
do
they're
try to do
doing.
so, but I mean we are seeing that there's he seems to have certain combinations that he has to play to meet certain criteria that aren't rugby related. Now, other players, everyone in that green jersey is a very good player, and we are talking the difference in a couple of percent here and there. Don't get me wrong; I think they're all international standard. It's not there's no one there who's kind of who's just making up the quotas totally, but. But it's within the squad. But it's a matter of who actually makes the game day 15, and it is marginal. I'm talking percentages. In some cases, it is going to be personal opinion. But it was the way that. So in the past, I've been pick it how he does it. It was the way that he switched out players, and they came back with the same ratio, but in different positions. You're like, sorry, but that's just too obvious. It's clearly that's what he's having to do.
Look, I mean, you mentioned about, they're only a couple of percent off, that sort of thing, right, here or there. It's just like, that's massive at an international level. It's the winning and losing a game at international level, particularly currently against the All Blacks, is about that 1 or 2%. If you're 1 or 2% off, you're not going to win against the All Blacks. Generally most teams are sort of relying on the fact that they're playing their absolute best on the day, and the All Blacks are a little bit off to win the game. As I said, currently. If you've got players in your team that are 1 or 2% off being as where they should be, or as, say, somebody else in the squad, that's going to impact your game big time.
Yeah, so I think that's a problem for them. Australia, they just are so thin in certain positions. If they have their first choice 23, they've got a very good side. If they haven't, they have a couple of injuries, they're in real trouble.
I think you're stretching it at 23, even, to tell you the truth. I think they've got 15's good, but even the bench struggles, I think. Getting the right players onto the calibre on the bench that they need, they can struggle.
Yeah, especially on the halfbacks. Once you pass Genia and Foley, the backups really, the drop off is big.
Actually, Foley's a good example. In fact, better than the halfback scenario, isn't it? Because at the end of the day, they really don't have a backup first five at all, and you've got to have a backup first five on your bench, don't you?
Yep.
Yeah. So already they're down to 22.
It's either Hodge, who really is who's not a 10, or Curly Beale, who, let's be honest, spends a lot of his time stood in at 10 on attack, but kicking wise is not someone you want to rely on as for attacking ball in hand. Fantastic, yeah, no worries at all at 10. But attacking, but kicking around the field, that's not really what I want. I don't want Curly Beale in that position doing that for me, and that's the problem, isn't it?
The other big problem, yeah, absolutely, 100%. And the other problem that they've got is the fact is that their type 5 is not international quality. They're starting to build. We'll find out this series whether your likes of an Isaac Rodder and Adam Coleman, I think it is, that's their other second rower. Those guys got to step up. They've got Taniela Tupou. Obviously, he's just getting better as gets game time. But that type 5 has to be probably stronger. Then you've got the Pooper combination that can actually, be effective. Because if the type 5 gets smashed or mashed by the Springboks and the All Blacks, then the Pooper combination is going to be very ineffective in doing anything. Yeah,
and also they do have a problem at 13 because Karevi and Kurandrani, the first choice 13s for the Reds and the Brumbies, are out injured. So, pardon me, it's going to be interesting to see who's going to wear that 13 jersey. Alex reckons it's going to be Hodge, which means that's probably his 6th or 7th different position playing for the Wallabies. Hodge has played wing, 10, 12. I'm not sure I've seen him in the 13 jersey yet. And that's going to definitely be a defensive liability. Well, something you'd want to test on attack is that 13 channel if Hodge is there, because he does not have the game time there defensively. So it's going to be interesting to see who they go play with at 13. And then the Pumas are going to be, this is interesting, really interesting for me. Mario Ledesma, obviously the guide credited with that 7 game winning streak for the Jaguares, is now the Pumas coach. So can he carry that through the Jaguares form through into the Pumas?
Crickets, as Tom Rawson would say, crickets. I think the issue is not the coach. I think that those guys are pretty much spent. We had that question around the Jaguares when they came back from the June international window as to would they step up, and really they didn't. Games that we thought that they had a lot of incentive to come back, to perform well, become number one in their pool, to have all the benefits. Didn't happen for them. And you got to say, are they spent because of it's the same team playing Super Rugby, June international window, Super Rugby, and now they've got to play Rugby Championship. It's the same team going through.
Yeah, but all those they won at home after the June internationals, but it was when they had to go on the road, and they just couldn't win in South Africa. So that's going to be a problem. And their first game is in South Africa, so that's
not a good start. Bless you.
Oh,
Gesundheit.
Thank you. I managed to mute it for the second one. So, sorry for those of you who heard the first. So having their first game in South Africa isn't going to help them at all, and they're going to struggle there. So we should actually look towards the weekend now. And so what games are you looking forward to?
All Blacks Australia. I'll be honest with you. The reason I'm looking forward to that is I'm genuinely curious to see whether the form that the Wallabies had against Ireland, or the level of play, whether they're able to bring that. If they are able to bring that, it's sort of, to me, it gives a bit of an indication of how good the Irish team was. Was it as good as, well, basically, are they the number 2 team in the world type scenario? So it starts to sort of, that's what I'm looking forward to that game, to sort of answer a few other questions around the game itself rather than the All Blacks playing.
So there's that. Obviously, the other game in the Rugby Championship is the Box versus the Pumas at 3 o'clock in the morning, our time in New Zealand. So we'll have to see whether I'm up for that game, or whether I probably will be watching that one on record, to be honest. There's Bledisloe. That's always a good game to look forward to. Thursday night, North Harbour versus Northland. Looking forward to the Mitre 10 Cup kicking off. That should be a pretty comfortable win for North Harbour. But you never know. Maybe Andre will be at that game. Maybe I can get him to do a bit of a post-match live from the ground, quick show. You never know.
Or if he's not busy cleaning the dog.
So that'll be interesting. And then you obviously got Tasman versus Canterbury, so that South Island battle should be good down there. A game that I'm thinking of going to, Manawatu versus Waikato. It's a bit of a drive. It's about a 3-hour drive for me to get to that game. But it's a 2:35 or 2:30 kickoff in the afternoon. So I should be able to get home in time for the Bledisloe. And I've had kind of a bit of and as soon as I say this, the name, I've got a bit of a list of rugby things I want to do when I kind of arrived in New Zealand. Up there was a tender game, an All Blacks game at Eden Park, obviously. Another one was to go down to the South Island and stand in the zoo and watch a game. That's a to do. Another one was to go and watch a pre-season game in a field because TUI were organising those. So yes, I went all the way to Ekatahuna for a Super Rugby pre-season game. So that's a tick. And the other one is to stand with the bucket heads and watch a game. So hence I'm going to try and get myself a green bucket maybe and go to...
Are you going to buy your green bucket at Placemakers?
Probably not. I'll be blunt. Pumper Prizes is great because I get free clothing. Basically, it keeps me warm. And a few other good freebies. But at the end of the day, I'm not a fan of Placemakers. I go to Mitre 10. Unless I'm in Auckland, in which case I go to Bunnings because that's the closest one to my house in Auckland, or to the house I own in Auckland. So Bunnings in Auckland, or when I'm in New Plymouth, I go to Mitre 10. The only time I ever go to Placemakers is to pick up my prizes. To be honest. So Manawatu, Waikato, looking forward to that one. There's a couple other games in there. Obviously, Auckland Counties Manukau. That's a good old Bombay
Ding Dong battle. Ding
Dong Bombay Hills battle.
At Eden Park, so I'll be there.
And you'll be that one. I'll be driving back, so perhaps we won't do a live show after that one.
No, we won't.
Bay of Plenty Taranaki up in Rotorua. That's obviously that's a bit of a May game. Taranaki should win that one. They're away, so it's not around Philly Shield or anything. So there we go. Wellington Otago again. That should be that might be a decent one. And Southland Hawke's Bay. Maybe that'll be Southland's one win of the season. So
harsh but fair.
Yeah, they only got one last year.
But fair.
So Manawatu, I say purely because I'll be going to it. I'm interested in that one. Otherwise, Thursday night, and then that's the Bombay one. Oh, actually, the South Island, Tasman, Canterbury will be good. I mean, Canterbury have won 9 out of the last 10 Mitre 10 Cups, or NPC Cups, whatever you want to call them. The one time they didn't win it, they lost to Tasman in the semi-final. So Tasman have got form over Canterbury.
They have. I think last year might not have been as competitive against Canterbury, but they've really been pushing, and they've even some regular season games they've beaten Canterbury. And I'd be curious. I think I actually remember a Tasman Taranaki final, and I think Tasman beat Canterbury in the semi. I think.
Yes, exactly.
But hey, look, I'm old, so I do remember.
Tasman beat Canterbury in the semis, and then had to travel to New Plymouth for the final and lost to Taranaki. So Taranaki, the only side that have won an NPC title in the last 10 years, apart from Canterbury.
Are you sure that's? I thought Taranaki's actually picked up a couple.
No.
Okay. No, because I was just reading this. I thought I read something today that said that they beat Auckland in a final a few years ago.
That's more than a decade ago. Auckland has not been in a final for a long time.
No, in a semi. It could be a semi.
Yes.
Well, no. They said final. So, but I know the semi, but because there was one that went into overtime a few years ago. So, it was a final or a semi.
We'll see. Then the Currie Cup. Yes. Moving on. The Currie Cup also kicks off this weekend with Free State Cheetahs playing the Blue Bulls. Now, this is kind of a pre-season. It'd be interesting to see how the Cheetahs select for this one, because they could have their entire squad available because it's pre-season for the Pro 14, so they could use it as a pre-season game for that team, or they could use their Currie Cup team. So it'll be interesting how that goes. And then the other game is the Pumas versus the Griquas. So the two non-Super Rugby sides who are in the Currie Cup Premiership. So again, big game for those two, because that's obviously they don't have the disadvantage they normally have against Super Rugby teams or Super Rugby provinces in that one. So that's those. I will do predictions for all those games, prediction shows. So look out for that on YouTube, Periscope, Facebook, and all that kind of stuff. It's all very all those kind of places. Arshad, thank you very much for joining me, sir.
No worries, no worries. See, we didn't actually run over too much, and we actually covered everything in the end, I think.
Really? Okay. We didn't really go into any depth about Mario Desmond going as Puma's coach. We didn't answer the question, is the Mice Cup relevant anymore? We totally skipped that whole section.
We could do that. We could do that next week, though.
And we also skipped the whole is the whole idea of rugby to cheat. So apart from that, we got through half the questions.
Mind you, to be fair, that last question we've been that keeps getting bumped. Like the
week.
guest you don't want on a radio show every week sort of thing keeps getting bumped every week. So it's just got bumped again. It's going to feel left out soon. It's going to go down the bad tracks.
Oh, dear me. And as normal, I've forgotten to do all the sort of calls to action during the show. So, guys, if you're on Facebook, like and subscribe. If you're on, not Facebook, that's YouTube. If you're on Facebook, share. And like actually. If you're on Twitter, share. All that kind of stuff. If you're on the podcast, 5-star review. And if you're watching it somewhere else, how did it get there? I don't know. Someone's stolen my content. Go and sue them for me, please, and pass me the cash. And become a Patreon. Tell all your friends. And lovely jubbly. Thank you, guys. It's been a blast. And catch you all later.